Morning, and how are you this morning? I'm a little bit later than I said I was going to be, but hopefully there'll be people on here who will join me. Please leave me a comment below if you're on and say hello. I won't be able to speak to you when I'm doing the book reading. That will not be very easy for me. But leave me any comments below. I hope you're you're enjoying this, looking forward to it. So let's carry on with it. We're on excerpt number 7, Key to My Heart. She might have known. She was such a fool. Fancy thinking for even one moment that there was an ounce of good in Simon Rochester. He travelled the world, flashed his good looks and charm at any poor unsuspecting woman, and she fell at his feet, hopelessly in love with him. Well, she was not going to be another in his long line of conquests. That was definite. Ladies and gentlemen, she was on her feet, poised and efficient as ever. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Sir Claude Roseby. There was a small ripple of applause. As many of you already know, he's on the board of one of the largest merchant banks in the city, and he has kindly agreed to join us here today to give us the benefit of his considerable expertise in the marketing world. We have also scheduled a session before dinner where you can pick his brains and make use of his vast business acumen. She smiled at the portly gentleman stood by her, allowing that smile to radiate across her audience, only to catch sight of Simon again. She looked away quickly before he noticed her. In your pre-conference pack, there were notes for the plenary, which you'll find under the green tab. Please follow them during the session. She paused again before concluding. Sir Claude. When the applause had died down, she quietly tiptoed to the back of the room and settled herself down with her notepad. Her bosses liked feedback on all the lecturers, and even though she handed out questionnaires at the end of the course, she still liked to jot down her own thoughts and ideas on the contributors to her programmes. Despite her best efforts to concentrate on the matter in hand, her mind kept straying back to lunch and the effect his words had on her. It was uncanny, even spooky, how he seemed to realise that she was hiding her feelings away. His gaze had been very intimate, piercing almost, as if he were looking deep into her soul and seeing her own persona spread out before him in his mind. In one way, she didn't like it, and in another, it was nice to think that someone could maybe understand her without the need for her to spell everything out. Dan Smith, her first husband, had never listened to her, much more intent on making his own voice heard, his opinion paramount in any discussions they had. He wouldn't have known what her thoughts were had he tripped over them. It was also scary that another person could evidently empathise to the extent of seeing what was beneath the super-efficient business-like facade she presented. Even Carol seemed to have lost sight of the real Melanie. No, that wasn't true. Carol was merely reacting to her own perceptions of this Rochester guy. Usually she would have looked deeper at him, but Dan had hurt her and she was afraid to get anywhere near a man again. And particularly a man like Simon, who was suave and sophisticated, well-travelled, seemingly well-educated, poised and extremely articulate. Given half a chance, her heart would have flipped. But it seemed he had a past, and she didn't really think she could take that past on board, or that she wanted to be a part of his future. She pulled herself back to the present and began making bullet point notes on Sir Claude's speech. He seemed to be droning on today and not his usual self. This was the third time he'd spoken at similar conferences for her company, and despite his gruff mannerisms, he seemed to transfer his passion for business to the delegates. They usually seemed uplifted and inspired when he'd spoken. A murmur began around the room, and she craned her neck to see what was happening at the front, her heart skipping a beat when she saw how pale Sir Claude looked. His fist now balled against his chest. She dumped her papers on the floor and walked quickly to the front table where he was sitting. "Are you okay?" she whispered. "Bit of indigestion, I think." He tried to smile, but she could see he was in pain. "I'll be fine." "No, you won't." She poured him a glass of water. "Here, have a drink." She turned back to the assembled delegates, her tummy turning over, knowing she had to handle this, but unsure of whether she could pull it off or she'd fall apart. "I think it might be appropriate for us to take a 5-minute break. If you could leave the room as quietly as possible." She turned back to Claude Roseby, noticing he was even paler than before and seemingly short of breath. She had some first aid training, but not enough to feel overly confident in a situation that looked like it could develop into a heart attack. She was just about to shout and ask if anyone had any medical training when she felt his hand on her arm. "Don't be alarmed, my dear, it's a touch of angina. I have some tablets in my case." "Thank God for that," she mumbled to herself as she ferreted around in his bag, finding the bottle and handing it to him, from which he shook out one tablet, putting it under his tongue. "Feeling better?" She spun round, coming face to face with her Mr. Rochester again. "We're fine. Everything's under control," she snapped. "Thanks, Simon," Roseby said. "Dicky Ticker played me up on the flight back from New York last time, didn't it?" He tried to smile, but the effort seemed too much. "And I told you then that you're doing too much," Simon commented. "And those blessed cigars of yours," Roseby cut in. "You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm too old to change now." Simon laughed at him and then took hold of her arm, taking her to one side. "He's not well, you know. I think he should rest." "Well, I can see that for myself," she spat. "I'm only trying to help." "Sorry." She pinched the bridge of her nose. It's been a hectic day. She checked her watch. He was on all afternoon and this evening. How do I fill that gap? This is new material this time. Had it been the last couple of years' notes, I could have taken the session myself. Well, put the slides up and talk them through the handout. I could do it. You? She felt her eyes open wide in astonishment. Why not? I saw him do this lecture in New York earlier in the year. I can remember most of it. She coughed politely. "Look, I know you think you're some kind of hotshot businessman, but this guy knows his stuff. I can't have you standing for an eminent merchant banker." He looked annoyed. "Well, what choice do you have? It's either me or let him loose on the audience, and then we have to do mouth-to-mouth on him." He dropped his voice menacingly low, bringing his face close to hers. "And believe me, there are other people in this room that I'd rather be doing that with." She turned her full attention to him, her voice laced with sarcasm. "Oh, I bet there would." "It's your choice, but the guy needs some rest. He'll be fine for the pre-dinner plenary, but make him get up now and—" he turned to look at the ashen face of the merchant banker. "Oh, who knows?" "OK," her open spread hands showing her grudged acceptance of the situation. "Have it your way." She looked him straight in the eye, an admonishing finger pointing up at the ceiling. "But screw this up for me and you're a dead man walking." "Feisty, aren't we?" He laughed, making her feel even more annoyed with him, even less in control of the situation. And then he went on, "You go gather the troops. I'll go tell him the plan." Well, there we are. That's where we leave it for today. I hope you're enjoying it. Again, if you are, give me a thumbs up. If not, thumbs down. At least give me some comments. It'd be great to hear what you're thinking. Whether you're enjoying it, whether you're not enjoying it, whether you've caught up with it or not, or whether you're just not having the time to listen to it. But, you know, I'm sure that you're out there and you're thoroughly enjoying it, and I'm hoping you are. So please just leave me some comments and let me know how you feel it's going and whether or not you're interested to hear some more. So I'll speak to you again tomorrow. It'll either, as I said yesterday, it'll either be 11ish in the morning or 2:30 in the afternoon. So I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.